Thank you, Lisa, and shout out to Brie Linehan, who actually put the video together. She is a creator on social media, and I think it's pretty poignant that we brought in some social media clips when we are going to talk about body image and how the media is portraying it for women in the past and still currently today. I think it is truly amazing that despite all of the press that we've had and all of the celebrities speaking out and the like real women speaking out about how they have felt attacked by social media or the general media, and how they felt that that has negatively impacted their body image, I feel amazed that it's still something that we're seeing. Whether that be that heroin chic is making a comeback as a trend. If you're not familiar with heroin chic, it was a look in the 90s where you looked so skinny you could potentially have been on drugs. So that apparently is making a comeback as a fashion trend. Or whether it's Kim Kardashian losing 16 pounds to fit into a dress that she wore solely for some photographs on the red carpet, and wasn't actually able to sit down and so had to take it off for the rest of the event. I think these things being in the media to this day are still incredibly damaging to women. I'm surprised that Kim Kardashian, being someone who has been targeted because of her body, even when she was pregnant by media outlets, is still promoting such kind of drastic weight loss measures for such a kind of small space of time to have some photographs taken. I think as women, we really need to abolish this unhealthy obsession that we have with body weight and start focusing more on our health and what's happening internally. That's exactly what I wanted to do with StaceFit coaching. I wanted it to be a safe space for women, and I wanted it to be a bit more about promoting an overall healthier lifestyle than just crash dieting to fit into dresses or to look good on your holiday or whatever. And I mean, of course, maintaining a healthy lifestyle comes with the benefit that you may have a more desirable physique, but it isn't the be all and end all. And I think this the scale weight fascination that we've been taught is really negative, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in my session. But let me tell you a little bit about me and how I came to be involved in this, and how I kind of found my passion for coaching, but also my passion for training, just because I really do love my body and what everything that it can do. So like I started out as a pretty skinny child, and I mean like really skinny, quite bony, naturally built that way, kind of, we would say in Scotland, lanky. I was tall, I had long limbs, but I didn't have a lot of fat on the bones. But I had a really good appetite. I loved vegetables. I was never a fussy eater. I would always like eat my meals, no problem. Like everything was fine. And then I went to school, and we're talking like primary school. So you're like ages between 5 and 11 when you're in primary school in Scotland. And kids were mean, and they would make fun of me, and they would call me Skeletor. They would say that I looked like I was dying. Some kids would say that I was anorexic. And that obviously, as a kind of impressionable child, is not good. But we know that kids are cruel, right? And kids say things to people that they don't know the damage that they're doing. And it could be anything. It could be that you're the fat kid. It could be that you're skinny kid. It could be that you develop boobs too early and they make fun of you for that, you know. Kids we expect are cruel, and I think we're resilient enough to kind of get over that as we get older. But the problem that I had when I was at school was that my teachers added fuel to the fire. So while I had kids saying, "You're anorexic, you don't eat, why are you so skinny? You're going to die, look at how bony you are." I also had teachers who would assume that because kids were saying this and because I was skinny and because of my appearance, that this was true. And despite the fact that my parents had confirmed that there was nothing wrong with my appetite, I have a very healthy appetite, I always have, that I was a healthy eater, I ate all of my meals, there was no issues with food, there was no forcing me to eat. And despite the fact that I didn't display any concerning behaviour in regard to food or my mental health at school, my teachers, based on my appearance, would come and sit with me in the lunchroom and watch me eat my lunch. And this was unusual and it was very obvious because in the lunchroom, all the kids sit at their tables and the teachers sit at a separate table. But I would have one teacher come and sit with me at my table and watch me eat. So what does that do to kids? That tells them that their narrative that you are anorexic or you have something wrong with you is true. And then that gives them more room to bully you and more room to pick on you. And it got to a point for me when I was going to high school that I absolutely hated the way I looked. And not because I looked in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw, but because other people taught me that I should have hated how I looked. And by God, I am glad social media was not a thing when I was at school, because it was hard enough without adding all of that nasty, toxic nonsense about weight and dress sizes and diets and losing 16 pounds in a couple of weeks for a dress fitting. None of that was around, and I think that potentially was my saving grace. So as I got to like 16 and I got a bit older and I gained a bit of weight, because your body naturally develops when you get a little bit older. You get some hips, kind of grow in the chest area a little bit, although not much, and I still haven't to this day. And people repeatedly told me, oh, you look so much better. Oh, you look so much healthier. Oh, you don't look sick anymore. And that should have been insulting, right? But being so young and being so kind of damaged by the things that people were saying, this acceptance for me was like gold. So then I was like, okay, this is great. I gained some weight, and yeah, okay, it doesn't matter that when I take my clothes off, I've got stretch marks because I gained weight quicker than I should have done. Doesn't matter that I've got that, because when people see me with my clothes on, which most people did because I was 16, they think I look better. They've accepted me. And so I ate more, because eating more and gaining weight had gained me acceptance. And the really, really sad thing is, as an adolescent, I wasn't deciding about myself. This was all based on other people. My feelings about my body and how I felt about me was based on what I thought I should feel, because other people were telling me that's how it is. And then, of course, we get older, right? And alcohol comes into the mix. And I don't know about you guys, but I am Scottish, and in the UK, there is very much a social acceptance that people drink a lot of alcohol, and particularly in Scotland. And I know that we have a little reputation for liking our liquor. So obviously, as we grow up, we start to experiment and we do drink and whatnot. And with that came this kind of party girl persona for me. And what I found with that was that I became more popular. So the people that were like, oh, you've gained some weight, you look so much better, you look healthier, you don't look sick anymore. When I started to drink and I started to go out and I started to party, they would be like, oh my God, you're so much fun. Let's go out this weekend. Let's go out on Thursday. Let's go out this day. And the child in me that didn't feel accepted felt like, okay, so I'm cool, I'm popular, I've got loads of friends, and like we're just having a good time, right? We're going out, we're having a good time. But we weren't having a good time. We were excessively drinking alcohol. And I mean, insane amounts. When I talk to people now about how much alcohol I was drinking at that point in time, they look at me like I grew horns. They're like, how were you drinking that much at that age? But we were. And I mean, the people I was with were drinking just as much. We were all drinking a lot. And then you're staving off the hangover with fatty, greasy foods. And before you know it, you're gaining more and more weight, and you're not doing any exercise, and you feel like crap all week because you're drinking all weekend. You're not resting, you're not doing anything kind of healing for your body. You're just finishing work on Friday, going straight to the pub, and by the time you're going back to work on Monday, you're just drying out from the night before. And that was a cycle every week. That's what I was doing, and the weight was piling on, and I was partying, and I was popular, but I'm not entirely sure I was happy. I don't know if I was happy because I was so drunk to even realize. And I'd surrounded myself with these people that were like, "Oh, you're so much fun! Like, yeah, let's go out again." But these were also people who were equally as unhealthy as I was, and who would ridicule people that did look after themselves. And I realized as an adult that when you ridicule someone, it's usually because they're doing something that you know you can't. Because, I mean, as a normal, healthy person, you wouldn't do that, right? But when you are a toxic person, your only action when it comes to someone who is doing something that you're incapable of, or you don't do yourself, and it makes you feel bad about yourself, is to ridicule them. And that's what we were doing. I was doing it as well. I slagged off fit people. I'd be like, why is she going to the gym? She's naturally skinny. She doesn't need to go to the gym. I didn't know if anyone was naturally skinny. I was naturally skinny. Maybe if I'd taken myself to the gym then, I wouldn't have been ridiculing these people. But yeah, I was around like a people that had this toxic energy that I was feeding off of, and I was very toxic myself. It was very much ingrained in me, that the lifestyle that we had, and the constant eating of junk food and drinking was the way it should be, and anyone that didn't do that was a fool, and why would they be any different? And I'm disgusted by them because they look great in their size 8 dress. And it's funny when I think about it now, because now I don't drink very often. I do enjoy a glass of wine, but I would probably only drink like every other month. Um, and it doesn't bother me. It's not something that I'm like, oh, I'm dying for a glass of wine. And I can very much go out on a night out and just take my car and enjoy myself. And now I have friends that if I take my car on a night out and say I'm not drinking, they're just like, all right, okay, cool. Can you run me home? Like, designated driver, or yeah, fine, no probs. Whereas back then, I do remember once saying to a friend, I think I'm just going to bring my car. And she said, if you're not going to drink, just don't bother coming. And that's the level of toxicity that we are talking about. So yeah, I mean, that was very much where I had gone to, and I do relate the skinny kid not being accepted to this out of control early 20s party girl who was accepted, but for all the wrong reasons. I didn't actually realize that at the time. I was also in a relationship with someone at the time who was a good bit older than me, and who was very controlling in terms of finances, and who didn't really spend a great deal of time with me. I'd moved away from my family, so I wasn't like close by enough that I could visit. We shared one car, which he would always say that he needed, and he would go out, so then I would be stuck at home. And I think that loneliness, and kind of difficulty to cope in that loneliness, I wasn't very good at being alone at that time in my life, whereas now I love it. But I think to deal with that, I very much sought comfort in food and alcohol. So even if I wasn't going out with friends or doing anything, I would order in a huge takeaway. I would drink multiple bottles of wine, sitting in my living room watching the X Factor or whatever, because I wasn't fulfilled in so many other ways, and that was my way of making myself feel happy. But then I wouldn't feel happy. Then I would feel crap about myself. Then I would try on clothes and I would think, Jesus, what happened to you? And I'd get sick of being fat and I'd crash diet. Let me tell you, crash diets, they don't work. I've done them all. I've done Weight Watchers where you've got points to play with and you can save up all your points and drink alcohol at the weekend. I've done Slimming World that demonizes foods and calls chocolate bars sins, gives them sin counts. It's not spelled like S-I-N, but the word is the same. I mean, mentally does the same thing. I tried laxative teas, which one time I got a delivery of from China and my dog ate them when they came through the letterbox. So that was fun. And I tried starvation, which in turn led to binge eating. And I think Weight Watchers kind of falls into that category as well, right? Because when you go to Weight Watchers, you've got your Marjorie Doors woman, for anyone that's familiar with Little Britain. She's like the group leader of the Slimming Club, and she's given it right, okay, like these are the amount of points you're allowed to eat this week, but if you've got a night out coming out, you just cut off a few points in the week and then you can drink all of that in alcohol. And when you're a person that eats takeout food and drinks alcohol as your staple, and someone's telling you, well, in order to drink the alcohol, just don't eat in the week, and it's fine. You take that to the extreme. You just don't eat. You're eating those mugshot pasta pots that are only a few hundred calories to get through so that you can sink a few bottles of wine on the weekend. That's not really the message that we should be delivering. If you starve yourself all week and then binge at the weekend, you're entering a cycle of binge, restrict, binge, restrict, binge, restrict. And when you binge and restrict, you're restricting because you feel guilty about the binge. And you shouldn't at any point in your life feel guilty about eating any kinds of food. Like, that's insane. Food is there. Enjoy it. Whether it's healthy, whole foods, or whether it is a chocolate biscuit, or I don't know, like you've gone to a restaurant to eat out, whatever. It's there to be enjoyed. It is not something that you're supposed to punish yourself for having. But also, we don't need to have it in excess. And when you enter into these crash diets, they essentially demonize and teach you that there are foods that you cannot have. And if you do have them, you've done something wrong. And then you should feel guilty. And then you should feel shame. And that's exactly what was happening. I would do these diets, I wouldn't stick to them, they wouldn't work. Of course they wouldn't work because they were all quick fixes and none of them are going to work long term. They're not sustainable. And then I would feel shame. I'd be obsessing over my scale weight. I had a very poor relationship with myself. I'd weigh myself every morning, and if the scale had fluctuated ever so slightly, that would determine how I dealt with the day. And that didn't mean that if my scale had gone up, I would starve myself. That meant that it could go one or two ways. If my scale went up, I might starve myself for a few days, but then I would binge because I was starving, and you can't sustain that. Or my scale would go up and I would think, to hell with it, I'm fat anyway, just let me eat everything. And then I would binge because what else am I going to do? I'm fat anyway, who cares? And it was this like mindset. I didn't do any exercise. I didn't even go out and get my steps in. I had no interest in trying to maintain any kind of health. My interest was solely on what did my body look like. And at that point in time, I wasn't happy that my body looked fat, but I also wasn't willing to deal with it in a structured and sustainable way. I wanted it to be overnight, and I did not gain that weight overnight, so I was never going to lose it overnight. So yeah, I think it's very interesting that I went from being this perfectly healthy kid with no food issues to an overweight, binge drinking adult with a myriad of food issues. It's kind of not okay, and kind of something that probably happens way more than it should. But there is an aha moment. There was a point that I turned it around. It's not all doom and gloom. And that aha moment was a friend's brother's wedding. And it's the same old story, right? You're going to a wedding, you get your hair done, you get your makeup done, you've got a new dress, you've got some banging shoes, and still love those shoes to this day. It's a good thing about shoes, they will always fit you. But yeah, feeling amazing, feeling like I looked $1 million, blowout hair is all nice and bouncy. My partner at the time decided last minute he wasn't going to attend. No good reason other than he didn't want to go. So I went alone with the rest of the couples, and had a really nice night. It was fun. My friend's brother got married, and it was a really special time. We all had a really nice night. But that wedding was the trigger for me. I don't know why. I don't know why it was this photo. I'd seen a million photos of myself. I'd been in the same shape for quite a long time. But the next day after the wedding, I saw a photograph of myself and my friend, and I did not recognise the person that was looking back at me. A shell of who I was unhealthy, I was overweight, I was unhappy, I was being poorly treated by many people around me, I was being controlled financially, and the absolute worst part of it was that I was letting it happen, because you're the person that's in control of you. And I have never been shy in coming forward. I've always been quite happy to speak my mind. I've always been quite happy to tell people when I thought they were out of order. Even in primary school, when I was being bullied by kids for being skinny, I clapped back. But for some reason, at this point, that girl looking at me in that picture wasn't doing any of that. She was accepting all of this horrible, toxic stuff that was making her feel like a completely different person. And that flipped a switch for me. Flipped a switch. Like, literally, like nothing else I'd experienced. It was like I just knew this is the turning point, and if you don't turn now, you've given up. And I wanted to change. I wanted to change forever. I didn't want a quick fix. I knew that they didn't work. I knew I'd tried it before. And I thought, okay, it was time to look at things from a different perspective. And like, I used to watch all those shows, Super Size versus Super Skinny, The Biggest Loser that was on that clip, America's Next Top Model. And it was all extreme and it was all like really harsh. But I knew deep down that this was not the way to fix it. I knew deep down that I just needed to stop eating things that I didn't eat before when I wasn't in this position. So I made a list. I noted down everything that I eat in a day. It was scary. I was eating crisps, I was eating chocolates, I was eating Chinese takeout, I was eating fish and chips. We have this thing in Scotland called a pizza crunch. Anyone that's been to Scotland knows that we fry everything. And they have this thing in chip shops called a pizza crunch. And it's essentially like a small frozen pizza that they cook, and then they dip it in batter, and then they deep fry it. It must be packed with fat and calories, and it definitely isn't good for you. There's no nutritional value in there. And I was having them for lunch during my lunch break from work with chips. So when I made the list of everything I was eating, it was quite easy to see what shouldn't have been in there on a daily basis. Now, I 100% promote a balanced diet, and I would never say eliminate any kind of food. I would never demonize any kind of food, but there are foods that you don't eat every day, and a pizza crunch is definitely one of those foods. So I made the list. I looked at it and I took out the things that I thought were not serving me. So the sweets, the crisps, the takeouts, and the wine. I didn't give up alcohol completely. I'll be honest about that. I very much still wanted to be able to socialise. At that age, I still very much felt like I had to drink alcohol to socialise. I don't feel that way now. That comes with age. But at the time, I did still want to drink alcohol, but I changed it and I reduced it. I stopped drinking at home. I stopped drinking alone. I only drank alcohol when I was going out with people, and there was like an event happening. And I stopped drinking wine completely. I cut wine out. I actually didn't drink wine for years, because I knew that if I did drink it, I would drink more of it than was reasonable, and that it was a very calorific drink to have. So if you're drinking 3 bottles, that's eating into what you should actually be eating to nourish your body. So I didn't count my calories. I don't even to this day know what my calories were at that point, because all I had to do was take out all of the junk, and that put me into deficit without me even having to track. Now, that's not something I would do now. Now I am very much conscious of what I'm having, but I'll get into that a bit later. But at the time, all I needed to do was cut back and just change some things and be healthier. So I did lose weight very quickly, and I think that the reduction of alcohol really helped with my mindset, my motivation, my clarity. It made me think about things a bit differently. It made me feel more energized to be able to go out and actually move my body. I started walking, then I started running. That was energy that I never had before. I very much didn't even want to walk the dog before. And it would literally be like, I would take him out just to go to the bathroom, and then I come back in because I couldn't be bothered. Because I didn't have energy. I was hungover, I was tired, I was drunk, like I was too busy waiting on my next takeaway to come. So I just wasn't moving. But taking away that like excessive alcohol drinking really did help me with that motivation. I ended the relationship that I was in. It obviously wasn't serving me well either, and was having impacts on my headspace. And then I thought, okay, we've lost some weight. We started moving. It's time to get some strength. It's time to get fit. It's time to actually make an effort and move in a way that kind of gets me stronger, makes me a more resilient person. And so I went circuits, group circuits. It was, let me tell you, freaking terrifying walking through that door the first time. Although I had lost a bit of weight, I'd not set foot in a gym, and I was massively intimidated by gyms. They terrified me, but it had to be done. I braved it, got through it, and I can honestly say, as much as it was a gut wrenching feeling to walk through those doors for the first time, it was fine once I was there. And even though I had this like perception of what gyms would be like, it didn't feel that way at all. It was a small community gym that I went to. There wasn't a whole load of members, which I think made it easier. And then the impact that just had on my mental and physical health was just incredible. Like, yeah, I went in there with the mindset that I wanted to still alter my body, and I still wanted to change what I looked like, and I wanted to tone up. But how that then made me feel mentally when I left, how proud of myself I was, how empowered I felt, was like a drug like no other. Forget your bottles of wine. That was the ultimate feeling. And so I got a personal trainer after that. And I loved working with the personal trainer. There was like lots of functional fitness. It was also really exciting, interesting pieces of equipment that I'd never seen before. And I really enjoyed pushing myself and being pushed a little bit further than I thought I could go by her. And it was great. What I will say about the personal trainer though was it wasn't all bells and whistles and it wasn't all rosy. This personal trainer that I dealt with did give you a really good workout in the gym, but they preached about only eating whole foods a lot. Now, I'm not saying it's bad to only eat whole foods, it's obviously good for you, but their ethos was never eat anything that is processed, only ever eat whole foods. Diet Coke, you might as well be drinking toilet cleaner. It's so bad for you. It's got so many chemicals in it. And that's fine. They were not wrong. Okay. They were not wrong about that. However, it's highly unlikely that your general person in the population is going to be able to eat 100% whole foods all the time. For a start, barely even available in Scotland. I think we've got like one Whole Foods supermarket. Um, it's also very expensive. And it's also just not how the general population live their lives. So, with this personal trainer preaching to me, you can't eat anything that is processed, or you must eat whole foods. It must have grown at some point, it must come from a whole source, but not providing me with any education on how to eat whole foods all of the time, or providing me with that little bit of wiggle room to say, like, look, we want you to eat whole foods as much as possible, but there will be occasions where you might have to have a can of Diet Coke. It's okay. They didn't provide any of that. So where that left me, a girl who was used to takeaways and alcohol, I didn't know what to eat. And I definitely wasn't eating enough protein. They never talked to me at all about protein intake. They never talked to me about fat intake to regulate my hormones or keep a healthy hormone balance. As a female, we need to make sure we're eating enough fat. So in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, what's whole foods? What can I eat? I swear to God, I was living on hummus and carrots. I was skinny. I was slim again and I was getting fitter, but I was not building any muscle because I was not eating any protein. And I think the most protein I was getting was like a vegan protein shake, and I'm not vegan. I was just having a vegan protein shake because that's what they sold in the gym that I went to. So I feel like while there was a lot of positives to working with that personal trainer, there was a lot of lack of information that would have been really helpful to someone like me that was just starting out, and it's something that I feel is missing with a lot of health professionals in the fitness industry. So yeah, then I moved over to the Middle East. I learned about nutrition myself because that was the only way I was going to learn about it. And I started to understand macros and calories and getting the adequate amount of protein in. I tried a bunch of different fitness classes, different to the one that I'd done in the UK. I did some Les Mills, didn't really love that. Some classes are good, some are not. And then I'd done some CrossFit. I loved CrossFit. I loved the community element of it. I loved the little competitive element. And so I started doing like their workouts of the day, 6 days a week. Absolutely loved it. It was fit as a fiddle. My cardio was fantastic. I done a Tough Mudder, and let me tell you, if you had told me at 25, Stacey, one day you will do a Tough Mudder obstacle course, I'd have laughed in your face and asked you to pass me a kebab, and maybe a glass of wine as well. But what an awesome experience, and I'm actually doing Tough Mudder again next year because it was so much fun. But while I was kind of going through this little journey, just in a kind of random CrossFit competition, we done some deadlifts and we had to do like a 1 rep max, which is not something you usually do in CrossFit. And so you were just to lift the bar for deadlift for like the 1 rep, heaviest possible weight you could do. And I was astounded to learn that I could lift this much weight. And that made me twig. And I'm like, I want to do more of this. I want to lift heavy. I want to know how heavy I can lift. I want to learn to lift more than this I've lifted now. And that, I guess they say, the rest is history. I found my one true love, which was bodybuilding. I genuinely found that joy of going into the gym and training and not training because I hate how I look and I want to change it. I want to tone up or I want to lose body fat. Training because my body is a machine and the things that it is capable of are incredible when I take my mind out of the equation. And for me now, still on my worst days, my days that I'm in my worst mood, my gloomiest days, I know that if I get in the gym and lift heavy weights, heavy ass weights, I will feel like the strong woman I am. I'll feel a million times better. I'll come out of the gym in a better mood. Even if I swear a lot during that session, I'm still going to come out in a better mood. And I now have that complete understanding that the number on the scale, it doesn't matter. Like, if I want to be able to lift heavier weights, then I need to have more muscle. To have more muscle, I might need to weigh a little bit more. I think I seen a really nice quote on someone else's social media that said, you need to be aware that your ideal body probably weighs more than you think it does. And I think that is perfect, and that it does. That number on the scale does not define your progress. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define your progress. It doesn't define how far you've come. And so many women put so much emphasis on that number. I remember when I was in the UAE, I had a colleague before I left my corporate job to go into coaching full time. I had a colleague, and she told me one day that when she gets on the scale in the morning and the number doesn't say what she wants it to say, it ruins her day, and she's in a bad mood for the rest of the day. And like, I get it because I've been there and I have felt that way, but it just still amazes me that women, she's an intelligent woman, she has a good job, she has a really purposeful job, she has a lovely family, and her happiness is determined by what this number on the scale says. When in actual fact, this number isn't just body fat. When you get on the scale in the morning, it isn't just your body fat that gets on the scale. It's your bones, your muscles, your organs, water, waste that you haven't got rid of yet. It's everything. It's not just Stacey's body fat's jumped on the scale and Jesus, look at what it says. It's your whole body, it's your whole entire body. And that number can then fluctuate for so many reasons because of that. So, stress levels. If your cortisol levels are up, you're retaining water, you're stressed, boom, scales up. Your menstrual cycle. Who gets bloated before they get their period? Pretty much everyone. If you don't, you're incredibly lucky. But we get bloated. Our uterus has extra fluid in it that it gets rid of. The number on the scale goes up. You've had a heavy workout the day before, your muscles fill with blood and water to aid recovery, boom, scale goes up. For sleep. Now, I've tried this. If you don't believe me, try it yourself. I have gotten up in the morning and weighed myself, taken the reading, gone back to bed for an hour, got up and weighed myself again, and the scale has come down. This proves that your sleep can impact the scale weight. If you don't sleep enough, if you didn't get your full 7 hours, that number can go up. Now, okay, the drop might only be 200 to 500 grams. But my point is, you didn't lose 200 to 500 grams sleeping in your bed for an hour. It's not that. You don't lose random amounts of fat doing nothing. You don't gain random amounts of fat overnight doing nothing. That number on the scale is not always fat going up. Sometimes that number is fluid. It could be that you drank too much liquid the day before. It could be that you had your dinner a lot later than you usually have it the day before. It could be that you've just not been to the toilet that day. But yet so many women get up, we get on there and we go, oh my God, it's gone up 2 pounds. My day is ruined. That 2 pounds could just be some water. So as much as the media want us to believe that scale and dress size is all that matters, it really isn't. You don't walk about with your scale weight or your dress size slapped across your forehead. No one knows what that is except from you. So we need to be encouraging women not to focus so much on the scale, not to focus so much on the dress size, but actually focus on your non-scale victories. Like, what about she got fitter so that she can go out in the garden and play with her kids and she doesn't get out of breath? She can pick her kids up without being in pain. What about she's progressed the lifts in the gym? What about she's been eating healthier consistently and she's managed to lower her cholesterol? She's increased her running pace. She's improved mobility, just making general life and doing things a whole lot easier. Like, these are the things that we should be encouraging women to celebrate. These are the things that we should be using to measure our progress, not what a number on a device that isn't always accurate says. And that's really what I've tried to do with StaceFit coaching. I have tried to make an enjoyable experience where women feel comfortable and they feel that they can really enter this kind of phase of their life where they're making positive, healthy changes and building healthier habits to be the best possible version of themselves. As I said before, going into a gym as someone who's overweight, unfit, and unhealthy, who had not been in a gym before, getting a personal trainer, going into a gym is a terrifying experience. It's very intimidating. And when it came to doing that for me, I was very reluctant to work with someone who I perceived, because I don't know their backstory and you don't know people's backstories, but I perceived this person, all these personal trainers, to have always been in shape, to not understand how it feels to be overweight, to not understand how it feels to be unfit. And I think I let my previous experiences of being judged by people because of the way I look affect how I felt about that, and it therefore caused me so much anxiety. So I had this like feeling of fear that these people are so in shape and have always been in shape and they'll be disgusted by how unfit I am, or how much extra body fat I still have. And that really made it more challenging. And part of me wonders if I didn't have those preconceived ideas, if I would perhaps have gone ahead with some sort of fitness program earlier in life. So yeah, I really wanted to make sure that there was an environment for women where that fear was kind of alleviated in a nice way. And I've had those trainers as well that preached only whole foods, no Diet Coke, but didn't provide any nutritional education. I've had a trainer that told me you'll never have a flat stomach, so you might as well just accept that. Who just put me through a workout, not explain to me why we were doing certain exercises, never gave me any nutritional advice or taught me anything. And I just kind of feel like for people that are coming into this new realm, this kind of unfamiliar territory, where they're scared and they're anxious and they fear failure as well, that there needs to be an all-round and overall support. So I really wanted to create a space for women that was comfortable, where they felt supported, where they felt guided, but also where they felt like they were receiving some sort of education, that they were completely, excuse me, but they were completely empowered to become like the healthiest version of themselves for themselves, not for anyone else, not because Kim Kardashian told you to do it in a magazine, not because closer magazines promoting the best cellulite destroying plan, just because you want to be healthier for you. And if you want to be like slimmer, you want to lose body fat for you, you want to build muscle for you, that's absolutely fine. But I just wanted there to be a space where women would really have all of that information to help them move forward, and where they were not alone. You're not doing it alone. This doesn't have to be a solo mission. You've got the support. So yeah, I do like tailored training plans and tailored nutrition plans, but I also provide education. I'll tell people why we're training the way we're training, why we're training these different body parts. You know, like so many women are like, I want to be toned, but I don't want to get too big. I don't want to have masses of muscle. I don't want to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm there to say, no, that's not going to happen. It's impossible for women to just accidentally gain that much muscle mass. You would either have to be taking some sort of steroid or really, really, really training very hard for a very long period of time. It's not going to happen by accident. So I'm there to give that advice. I'm there to kind of bash those kind of myths that women come in frightened to deal with. I'll teach them how to best nourish their bodies in a way that means they can still live their lives, they can still enjoy things. Yes, we eat stuff that is good and whole and nutritious, but there's space to have a chocolate biscuit with your tea if you want one. There's space to go out for a meal with your partner if it's your anniversary. You can still have alcohol if you wish, just not to the extent that I was having it. So I like to kind of teach like the whole spectrum in terms of nutrition, in terms of training, how to build your program, so that when you don't have a program done for you, you know what you're doing going forward. How to build healthy habits, and just like constantly provide information, understanding your hormones, how to have a healthier mindset, ways to switch off, ways to de-stress, like ultimately just being their biggest cheerleader, because it is a minefield. There's a lot of flawed information out there. There's a lot of men on the internet saying, oh, it's just a calorie deficit. That's all you need to lose weight. If you're not losing weight, you're not in a calorie deficit. When that's not true. That's not how women work. That's not how physiology works. There's many reasons why you might not be losing weight when you are in a calorie deficit. You could have a thyroid issue. You could have polycystic ovaries. You could have been in a deficit for far too long, and your body needs a freaking break. So there's a number of reasons why someone might not lose weight, and I think that the male perception of it and the portrayal of it on social media is really unhelpful, where it's just calorie deficit, and if you can't manage that, then you're doing it wrong, because that is not as straightforward as it is. So yeah, with my coaching business, I really hope that I am providing that all-round support for women, making them feel that they can really achieve anything that they want to put their minds to, and they can really be the healthiest and fittest version of themselves, regardless of what age they are, regardless of what their background is, and regardless of what their circumstances are. So I really hope that that's where we're going with it. And if you are interested in any of my coaching, then my website and Instagram has been linked. Thank you very much for your time.